Anyone see a message is recording?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so welcome to Troubleshooting session T5. I would say this is an easy technical session, but it is important because it's about methodology of troubleshooting. And we're just going to go over that, the steps and what are involved in the steps. And first, we'll go over our troubleshooting objectives. One is describe how to effectively troubleshoot using 6 steps of the troubleshooting methodology, and also use the troubleshooting steps and methodology to diagnose a motherboard issue. Behavioral skill and mindsets, communication, and persistence. The definition of troubleshooting, who can share that with us? Any volunteers?
Troubleshooting is a logical form of problem solving. When troubleshooting is applied to a computer or any kind of technology, it is the process of using logical problem solving to fix a reported failure.
Thank you. So here we have a handout, and I would just download this handout, and basically you can add notes to it on your own a little bit later to describe each step, but it's what's comprised in each step. And it's good reference for the test as well, and it gives you the methodology for troubleshooting. So make sure you get a copy of that, okay? And it should also be available in the student paste. Troubleshooting rule number 1, approach the problem systematically. So there are only 3 kinds of issues. And who can name those 3 issues for me?
User error, software failure, and hardware failure.
And what is the most common issue, do you think?
User.
Yeah, by far.
What's the second? That's the question.
What's the second?
I would have to
Um,
guess it's software, right?
I'm not sure because I've had my share of both.
Yeah, it's pretty even.
To me, it is. And I guess it depends on your experience too, or what you come across. Step 1, identify the problem. So step 1, interview the client and back up the data. So here are some questions that you might ask. Who can list the questions for me or read the questions for me? Come on, Kayla, you're good at this.
I am? Okay, all right, I'll do it. All right, open-ended questions include some of these. Please describe the problem. What error messages, usual displays, or failures did you see? When did the problem start? What was the situation when the problem occurred? What programs or software were you using? What changes have recently been made to the system? Has there been a recent thunderstorm or electrical problem? Have you made any hardware, software, or configuration changes? Has someone else used your computer recently? What valuable data on your system has not been backed up? How might I recreate what you were doing when the problem occurred? That's a lot of questions.
It's a lot of questions, but you know what? I would take a screenshot of this just for you, just for yourself, so that when you're interacting with a client or a customer or a user, it's good to know these questions. They'll become old hat after a while, but these are
think-
very good questions.
think what's nervous for me is I tend to fight fire with fire. So if I have a customer who's gonna be yelling and screaming at me, I don't know how I'm gonna like ask these questions when I gotta like
Well,
calm down, you know, like oh
yeah, take a breath. Take a breath.
God.
And you could say, I see, instead of you broke the system, I see your system is not working. Let's find out how that happened. Show me the process you used, or something like that. Just a little kinder words. But yeah, people are emotional. When something's not working, I mean, we're emotional. We don't like it when something's not working. But you also need to figure out the information from them. So you have to find a way to extract that information, and open-ended questions are very good for that.
But it is viable to like walk away if it gets too heated, right? Like you're able to like just drop what you're doing, like if your life is in like I don't know, in
If your life's
danger.
in peril, then you do need to walk away. Okay.
Like better not hit me with that laptop, sir. I don't know.
You do have to protect yourself. I mean, there are times when you should take your leave, but we're always respectful, even if they're not. Okay. And we should be the calming factor, if anything, even if they're not. I'm sure people have a lot of different experiences when it comes to customer relations at any rate. One that I find very good to ask, has there been a recent thunderstorm or electrical problem? That has come up a few times. And has there been recent construction in the building or renovating? That can knock a network off as well. So very good questions. Troubleshooting rule 2, establish your priorities. Troubleshooting rule 3, be aware of user error. And troubleshooting rule 4, ask about the data and always back up data. Why do we need to back up the data?
I'd like to answer this one.
Sure.
The reason why we would like to back up data is because, sometimes even if you do your job right, mistakes do happen. And you're trying to eliminate a lot of that liability on yourself. And not even just that, respect for the customers' data. You want to make sure that even if there's something that we have to do where we might have to say wipe a system, that they don't lose anything, that at least they can keep the data that they did have. And sometimes sometimes you don't do your job right. Sometimes stuff does happen, and you want to make sure that you can give the data back, or you can have the data that means a lot to you, so you can make sure that even if something does go wrong, at least I backed it up, so it won't be that hard to get everything back. Lesson learned.
Yes. Save yourself and save them too. Back up, back up, back up. Even if you're dealing with, like, I don't care, a Microsoft Word file, back it up, copy it before you interact with it. Step 2, examine the system and develop a theory. Troubleshooting rule, divide and conquer. What do you think that means?
Sharing the workload so that you can get it done. Well, divide and conquer is kind of like splitting up in small steps and then kind of tackling it if you want to get specific.
Thank you. Yeah, I can appreciate both what you said, both points. Troubleshooting rule 6, make no assumptions. What's the problem with making assumptions?
It could be easy to overlook something if you already think you know what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes there's a problem with thinking about something too deeply and having too much knowledge and applying it before actually finding out what the problem is, because it could be simple, and it could be something outside of that realm of what you think it might be. So that's why it's important to ask the questions and just not assume. Troubleshooting rule 7. Who can read this one for me?
Try the simple things first. Think about the least invasive measure and then slowly progress to more invasive measures as needed.
Yes. So what would be an invasive measure? Like a very invasive measure.
Like opening up a laptop, for instance, when you don't
Before,
have to, before like trying a new adapter, something like that.
right, or just asking questions. True. You can ask them and they're like, oh, my laptop's not working. Okay, well, you don't want to go into the guts of a laptop without checking to see if there was power connected first, something like that. And save yourself some time and heartache and start with the little things first. Okay, follow this process to form a best theory and test. Who can share this slide with us? Ninjin, are you available?
Yes, I am. Follow the process to form a best theory and test. Reproduce the problem and observe yourself what the client described. Decide if the problem is hardware or software. Make your best theory as to the source of the problem.
Yes. So reproducing the problem, why is that helpful?
Just so you have an understanding of how to fix it, because you know how it happened.
Exactly. Exactly. Very good. And it's been my experience. I'm not going to say this is always best, but to me, it's better to have them reproduce it for you. Okay, have them step through it and you watch them so you can see what they were doing when it happened. And maybe you'll pick up, you can have a theory based on that. Crystal, you have a question?
I was going to say that along with what Ninjan said, that it'll help you to understand the customer's frustration a little bit more, if not completely. And so, Kayla, also, I wanted to tell you that you have to change your mindset when it comes to customer service completely. And when someone is screaming in your face, do not reciprocate, period.
So true. Very, very valid and valued point.
Rachel, question. So you're trying to get a client that broke his or her computer, and how willing are they to reproduce the problem?
Sometimes they're not, that's true. That's why I said, it would be nice if you can have them reproduce it, but then sometimes it's just not appropriate at the time. You just have to work with what you have. And, you can't tell them that they broke it. You just can't.
I think my partner said the other day, because he was like laughing, because I was like, all right, let's go ahead and try to practice interviewing, right? We never got past it, because he made a like a funny joke. He was like, well, you can't fix dumb. So I was like, or you can't cure dumb. And I was like, what? What? You can't say that to a customer. I was like, yeah, I can, but not supposed to think about that anyways. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was really hilarious. And I was like, wow, because he's in management. So he's dealt with a lot of difficult people, and especially when they're older, because they feel like their time is more valuable than yours. So I just thought it was like really funny. So I don't know, maybe just keep it in your head, but like try to keep a happy facade. And
Yeah. Yeah, and just think they're mad at the situation, what's happening to them most of all. It's really not you, even if it's coming at you. So, and a lot of times, like when that happens, sometimes it can startle you. And I just say, take a breath and just treat them how you would want to be treated and be respectful. And that will carry you through. Troubleshooting rule number 8, become a researcher. So who's a researcher here? You all are.
us,
You all are. You better be.
we are.
You better be. You better be using that Google, that YouTube, everything.
I think what I'm a little bit more nervous about is we have to stay on top of our game after this. Even after we get our certificates, we got to still basically study and learn up new technologies, stay on top of our game, problem shoot, all that other fun stuff.
That
So
is, it's true. Very true. But let me tell you, there are some finite problems that you will come across. Okay. And you will be doing like research on some specific things and you'll just have to do it. You won't know the answer. You'll just have to research at the time and you will get the answer through your research. But there are always different variables, different environments, and that research will help you build your experiences and you can apply it to different users and different things, but it's going to help you. You're going to build your own like little library, so to speak, known to you. Okay, so here we have a little quiz. Let's see, let me. You guys ready for me to share the answer?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. How did you guys feel about those questions?
Oh, you know, like I have how I sound in person. Kind
I
of,
thought they were good.
confused.
Well, most of you did very good. Excellent.
I got 100. If you ask Rachel, I got 100. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. So this activity is interviews and theories, but basically, I just wanted to ask you guys, had you had any experiences when it comes to like problem solving or troubleshooting, whether it's with yourself, with your family, or at your place of employment, if you would like to share. Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, working in a financial center for the bank for about 5 years. Our tech support team wasn't the best. So I was doing most of the technical support for my branch actually. So I did a lot of troubleshooting. I did a lot of you know, basically the tech savvy guy for the branch without the actual accolades to do so, but I was used to that always doing that.
Yeah, it's a job, isn't it? You
For
meet all
sure.
kinds, right?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be
It,
simple things, but sometimes it was little updates here and there, and or hardware situations. Yeah, I was pretty much the technical guy there. It was interesting.
very good, very good. Adriel?
Um, I I've had my build for a while, but I had to update the parts, so I took taking stuff apart at that point. There's the hardware aspect and then there's the software aspect. I'm gonna
We
focus
have-
more on the software because that one's easier to mess up, if I'm being honest. Sometimes when something isn't working, I had a driver issue that I didn't think of the first thing. That could have been the first thing. I was like, maybe it's because I plugged in a new monitor or I switched around the setup and that's why something is not working out. But then I realized it's not just one monitor that's having the problem, it's both of them, and one of them is not turning on. So I ended up taking the cords out, turning the monitors off, so just resetting the system, doing all of that. And then I don't know, I just had the bright idea of opening my system settings to see if I had updated drivers and realized that that was the problem. And usually we don't think about the most simple issue that could be at hand. And sometimes you just end up going down a deep rabbit hole that could have been avoided if you had just went with the most obvious thing or the most obvious problem that it could have been. So that's where I usually end up having issues with troubleshooting, because it's like, oh, it has to, or not that it has to be, but for me it's like, oh, it's all broken, everything's broken, it's all falling apart.
You're all or nothing.
Yeah.
I can understand.
I call it being thorough.
Thank you for sharing. And Crystal, did you have a comment?
I did, but I thought that your question was to give an example of a time when we had to figure out a problem or figure out a solution. Is that what it was?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so my most recent, I guess my most recent instance of that would be figuring out what's going on with my 3-year-old son. And it's not just hard being a single parent, but it's also challenging knowing that my son is growing up without his father. And so I just try the best that I can. But most recently, some of you may not know, my son, within the last 3 days, he has hit his aftercare teacher twice and kicked her once. And last week, he threw a kid and had a temper tantrum in the middle of the classroom floor. And so I had to calm myself down because I was angry because I don't teach him that. And then, thank you, Casey. And then I was beaten a lot growing up for senseless things that didn't really matter. And I wasn't nurtured growing up. So I'm not taking that road in my child's life. I'm actually a pushover. So basically, I talked to him. One of the mothers in our neighborhood, she was quite adamant to find out if my child was being bullied. Why is he acting like that? He hugs strangers, he's that kid. So after talking to him and giving him some ice pops and pizza, I was able to communicate effectively to find out what was going on. And I also met with the teaching staff and the assistant principal, and they love my son. They wanted to know if there was anything going on at home. And I said, no, there's nothing new. There's nothing bad going on at home. And so they told me to just keep loving on him, basically, continue to nurture him, to continue to communicate as effectively as possible. And so I guess that I'm saying, like, go with your gut, you guys. My gut was to not inflict severe discipline, and that was the right thing to do. So go with your gut when it comes to troubleshooting, when it comes to our tests. Go with your gut because your gut will tell you right.
I can tell with your experience, you didn't presume to assume. You did research, you communicated, you asked questions. And if someone else had a theory and their theory wasn't correct, so you go back to the drawing board and you talk to those who are involved and who are affected. So effectively, you're getting somewhere, going to a solution.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I really wanted to know. I felt like, I know it's different because we're in IT, you guys, but I was trying to figure out if it was something that I was doing at home that it was causing him to act out physically like this, because I don't teach violence in my home. And so when you're thinking about an IT user, the IT user may not take that mindset of, hey, what did I do to create this problem? So that means that you just have to be even more patient and more kind with the thank you, everyone. You guys make me feel so great. But that's what I was trying to say earlier, when I was talking about Kayla interacting with an obscene customer. Like, you just have to change your mind, shut it down, and then just go, you know what? Let me try to see what's going on here. Let me try to assess the situation even more here to find out what the customer did that they're not even owning up to, or maybe it was a technical error. So anyway, that's what I was thinking, y'all. Thank you for letting me talk.
Absolutely. Thank you. And George?
Yeah, I used to work with people who were always mad at me because I was an assistant director at one point and I never spoke to anybody that was like happy to speak to me. At that point, when they got to speak to me, it was something horrible or they were mad at someone already. But the thing that I learned was I think it was Francis said, just let people talk. You just like let them speak until you hear them calm down a bit. That works too. Also, once you get to a point where they listen to you, you kind of like, the best thing to do is prioritize, like ask them what's the most important thing you want me to complete at this time, or what's the most important thing you want to take care of, and you just go down the list from there. That's what I used to do. I know it doesn't really work all the time with IT, but usually people like when you give them a priority list. It helps them calm down.
Very good suggestion. And yes, let them talk. I agree with Francis wholeheartedly. Let them talk themselves down. Kayla.
So this is where I'm on the fence. Like I understand I understand the technical aspects of letting a customer like blow out steam and then you could work from there. Because, you know, in reality, you could get sued. So, you know, that's definitely something that's always at the back of my mind. It's just like the experience I've had with being the bigger, better person in the situation, like left me feeling like I wanted to expel the same amount of energy as the person was throwing at me. That's just because of that I was raised a certain way, but I don't want that to dictate me because I don't want to show my son like that's how he should act. Like Crystal said, like I'm very against physical violence because, you know, my parents, they would get the belt and that's the end of that conversation. But it's like I'm still trying to grasp the I don't know, like the I
It's
wanted
still,
to make it a lifestyle, but I
yes.
feel like half the time I get it right and half the other times I don't. So that's
Yeah,
why I have an issue.
just keep working on it. It's also about self-control. And sometimes because of the way that we're raised or our interactions that we may have difficulty with it, but keep working on it. And this is about growth mindset. And this is about having empathy for people, even if they wouldn't have empathy for you, you know, and showing them respect, even if they don't show respect for you. Just treat them like you would want to be treated.
Yeah, Kayla and Crystal, I agree with you on being the black sheep of the family. I am one boy of three girls. It was rough. It was rough. All right. And I was the last one too. So they were like, "Oh, Adriel sport." No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm just the only one and y'all mad, you know? But nobody knew how to talk. Nobody would use words. And to you, Kayla, let me tell you, there are times where people will get so mad at you. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, but I use it, I sometimes use it as, you know what? I'm gonna see where this goes. I'm gonna see if they realize that they've been the only one that's been talking this entire time. And like maybe they're like, hello, is somebody still there? Like, yeah, I was just waiting for you to address the issue. You know? And that's a very respectful way of like showing somebody like, oh, I haven't actually addressed the issue yet. And it's hard. It's very hard. That's why there's a mute button on your phone, by the way. No, for real. I have a lot of friends that work in customer service and that mute button comes in handy. It really does, because all you really have to do is take your time and look at the situation from the perspective of, okay, maybe if this was me on the other side of the phone, I wouldn't have been like this, but let's think of a time where we've actually been this angry. And we genuinely felt as if we had a reason to be that angry, even though probably didn't, but we were still that angry. It does take practice, but learning how to be like, all right, well, let's just wait, or just laugh at it if you really want to. I'm telling you, that mute button comes in handy.
Ume?
Yes, I just wanted to share my thought that when someone call like any kind of customer service, maybe IT or any other field, like the reason is they know you didn't do the mistake, or maybe not, you are in customer service department, someone else did it, but they think it's, I think, like what I think is they think you are someone that they can share their frustration. They're frustrated, they have good reason to be to be frustrated, and they are angry, and they are maybe they're really facing some problem. So they think is a platform that they can share their thoughts, they can share their frustration. So what I do is I don't take it personally. They have their right to share their frustration. That's how I take it. And also, if I know some people, they put them the mute button, like customer service people. So sometimes for any kind of customer service, if I am really angry, I am really frustrated. So whenever they receive the call, they ask me what happened. Before I tell something, I give them the reference number or order number, because I ask them, I assume you need my order number first. They say yes, and then I give them the order number to make sure they're along with me. They're going along.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. So that they're on the same page, and
Yeah, because I want to make sure that I'm not just talking, because if I finish, they will ask me what is the order number, and then they will ask me what is the problem again.
yes, like they're
Yeah.
not listening.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. That's why it's so important that we spend a little bit of time on this, because really how you speak to people, it's like 99% um, in your job. It's just, you may not know how to do something, but if you know how to talk to someone, speak well, show them that you care, they will allow you time to get to know how to solve your problem. And that's kind of how I fell into IT a little bit. I just listened, and I didn't know the answer, but I said, I can understand this makes you feel this way. I'm going to do my best to solve your problem. Always treat them with respect and listen. And I was on my way.
Miss Rachel, I cannot imagine you getting angry at anyone. I just can't.
I think it's just a part of my makeup. I have gotten upset before, but I tend to feel like people are having a bad day, or, someone was raised differently, and that's just it. I just tend to brush it off. Ume, you still have a question?
No, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. It's a part of maturing and having a lot of different experiences, also being let down, and you're like, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? Things like that.
I just want to point out that I have dealt with, in my professional career, I have dealt with some racism and some sexual harassment and stuff like that. But I'm in my 40s, and so this was before like the Me Too. Even though it was in the early 2000s, it was still like you just didn't go to HR about these things. And so I to everyone who is getting started in their professional careers, I commend you on being the strong people that you are to report these things professionally so that they are rectified, because things have definitely changed. A lot of women of color are feeling comfortable to wear natural hair in professional settings, white collar settings. That was not the case when I first started working at Northrop Grumman at 19 years old. And so be the trendsetter, do the right thing. I just wanted to tell y'all that real quick.
We appreciate you. Okay, let's move on to step 3, test your theory. Troubleshooting rule number 9, write things down. Why is it important to write things down?
So you keep track of your steps that you're going through. You
Yes.
can go back to it later. You have the same issue.
Exactly. You're building your own library. Kayla?
Also, it's to help other people too. If you've already figured it out, it might cut the time in half for someone else.
Exactly. And that's another key point. Cut down on time. Time is money. Troubleshooting rule 10, don't assume the worst. What happens if you assume the worst?
You put holes in your in your chassis because you think that you know, you need more airflow, or your PCI Express card is not gonna fit. So instead of putting something back where it was before, the user decides to put holes in his chassis. You do not assume the worst, because you can go and make very harmful decisions that you cannot go back on, or it will be very expensive to treat or solve.
Good example. Don't assume the worst. You can make it worse for yourself and someone else. Hey, Kelly.
Good morning.
Good
Apparently,
morning.
my
Morning, Kelly.
physical therapist took 3 days off of torturing people and decided to really go long today.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. As long as it's helping you.
We'll go with that.
How's it feeling?
I can pick up 7 marbles at a time now.
Ooh, that's big. That's huge.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
not drop them.
I
And not
messed
drop
up.
them.
Yeah, I broke my left arm in a motorcycle accident, so I know the whole physical therapy thing. It's pretty, grueling. Takes a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, it does. And it's with this I have to develop the fine motor skills, otherwise I can't work on a keyboard. And that is my path I have chosen.
Can't go back now.
No. Especially since I like it.
Yeah. Well, glad you're okay.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting, and apologies for being late.
That's okay.
I did not anticipate an hour and a half session.
We're a smooth running engine. We can go on.
There we go. That's what I like to hear.
Okay, troubleshooting rule number 11, reboot and start over. This has fixed many of things for me. Rebooting, starting over. Step 4, playing your solution and then fix the problem. Troubleshooting rule 12, use the least invasive solution first, which we've discussed. Troubleshooting rule 13, know your starting point. What do you guys think about that, knowing your starting point?
Where to attack the problem from.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's multiple ways of explaining if there's not necessarily multiple explanations, but let's say that there's multiple causes for the same problem. So your connection your video connection is off. Your screen is very choppy and stuff like that. It could either be a driver issue or a cable issue. So you kind of know where your starting point would be. So
Right.
you can basically ask like, hey, have you moved your monitor within the past 2 days? Are your drivers updated? And if the drivers are updated, but they say like, hey, I have actually moved my monitor. I moved it over to this side of my desk. And you can say like, can you check the back, the cable in the back, make sure that it's incorrectly or something like that.
Yes, it's like, oh, go ahead, Crystal.
I was just going to say that when you're talking about knowing your starting point, for people who have PCs instead of MacBooks and stuff, like the starting point, you guys, is always, were there any updates installed, or are there going to be any updates installed? Because sometimes those updates can cause the like the morning, just opening the person's computer, if there are updates, it can slow down the whole process. And so if if the updates haven't been installed, it could cause an issue, a technical issue as well. And so that's why I was going to contribute that toward knowing your starting point, because as IT professionals, we have to stay on that as well. And yes, I'm speaking into the future for everyone, because we are on our way, because we are IT professionals.
Good point. Good point.
Here, here.
Donald?
Yeah, I would say like if your theory doesn't work, you want to know like where you start from, so you can go back and try a different theory, form a new
Absolutely.
hypothesis.
Yes. It's kind of like organizing your thoughts and your plan of attack and where you're starting and where you need to go back to if something, like you said, it doesn't work out. Step 5, verify functionality, take preventive action. And how do you think, what is an example of verifying functionality?
You gotta ask the user. I remember hearing that. That's like, it's not your job to verify the functionality, as in, even if you know it works, it doesn't matter until the user thinks that it works, like the problem has been solved.
That's a good point. They need to know that it works, so they need to use it. Crystal? You're muted.
When I think of verifying functionality, you guys, I think of ensuring that I think it was Kelly who said about making sure that the cords are correctly connected and stuff like that, to make sure that, like, that's the base. You know what I mean? That's what I think of when you say verify functionality, to make sure all the cords are attached appropriately.
That is verifying functionality as well. All the comments were correct. And take preventive action. So you fix their issue. What would be preventive action? Example, preventive action. Just think, we had in one of the T sessions, or one of the sessions we had a person that the updates were taking too long, and they had a meeting or something to go to. And a preventative action could be to set their updates to run during a non-active time. Step 6, document findings, which we talked about as well.
I don't like that this is the page I have to be looking at, knowing my personality. I feel like this is a personal attack. Generation will be finding out about this.
Oh my goodness. But it's right, don't overthink a solution. And just to reiterate, why is it so important to document the findings, even though we said it previously?
IT techs or team having documentation means that if the same problem happens in the future, that it can be solved faster. Or there is also documentation to prevent the said problem from occurring again.
And yes, absolutely. Thank you. And Crystal?
I was just going to say that communication is key. And when we were talking about the, you guys, what is it called when you're the ticket system and stuff like that? And when you're properly
When you're triaging?
Yes, when you're properly documenting within the ticket system, and if there are consistent issues across the board, maybe it's something that, you know, has to be taken care of for more than, oh, okay, well, you know, we need to bring that computer, all of the computers need to be updated for blah, 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 or whatever it may be. But communication is always key.
It is. And all of those are important points. And also, the documentation also shows that you actually worked on the problem. You're covering yourself in case someone asks or finds you responsible for not doing something you actually did. Okay. So this is good. Take a little screenshot of the troubleshooting steps here. It's also in your book as well. And who could read the slide for me?
As an IT professional, you are working on a computer that will not produce audio. You have already interviewed the client and learned the following. The audio stopped working 3 weeks ago. It was working and then suddenly stopped. The client hasn't seen any error messages. The client hasn't made any updates or changes to their machine. The data on the machine was backed up an hour ago.
Thank you. So what could be the possible issues? How would you attack this? What troubleshooting would you do?
I would.
No, you go. I've been talking too much.
I was gonna say we should try the simplest thing first. I would see if they hit maybe like the mute button or something.
So you wouldn't start with formatting the hard drive.
Nope.
Start with the king method.
I
What
mean, that
else
makes the most sense because there's no error messages. It has to be like from them just clicking the button or something.
what else could it be?
They need to download new audio drivers. They said that there hasn't been any updates or changes to their machine, which means maybe they are running drivers that are not currently compatible, or they have been updated because they're obsolete, whatever, or they need to be updated because they don't work anymore.
Maybe it's unplugged.
I love all
There's
the answers.
anything besides going into the computer and taking it apart.
So here are some possible solutions. So these are the least invasive, correct? Yeah, I know sometimes we don't think a virus that's infected the system, but it's possible. Okay, troubleshooting objectives revisited. Describe how to effectively troubleshoot using 6 steps of the troubleshooting methodology. And no, we did not diagnose the motherboard issue, though we did talk about the CPU earlier. Are there any questions? Or any comments? Okay, that will end our session for today.